Thank you for coming to Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Welcome to my channel. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for supporting me. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to comment and subscribe. Hi there, Bucket Liz. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. We start off Matthew 18, verse 6. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Matthew 18, verse 10. Take heed that ye despise not one of these little ones, for I say unto you, that in heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father which is in heaven. In Isaiah 1:17, learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. Amen. Good to see you, girl. Thanks for showing up. Evil men understand not judgment, but they that seek the Lord understands all things. Let's see if I did put this down here. Okay. It's so good to see you. So without further ado, we're going to go over child sex trafficking. Let me share the screen. There's the screen. This is again for National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, child sex trafficking. There's report child sex trafficking to the cyber tip line. I'm going to try to make sure I do have that. Show that. Scrolling at the bottom of the screen. The overview. Child sex trafficking is a form of child abuse that occurs when a child under 18 is advertised, solicited, or exploited through a commercial sex act. A commercial sex act is any sex act where something of value, such as money, food, drugs, or a place to stay, is given to or received by any person for sexual activity. While any child can be targeted by a trafficker, by research, by data, and survivor lived experience and expertise have revealed traffickers and buyers often target youth who lack strong support networks, have experienced violence in the past, are experiencing homelessness, or are marginalized by society. When you feel like they are not loved, supported in their identity and voice, or like they don't belong, they become ever more vulnerable to unsafe situations. Traffickers are masters of manipulation and prey upon vulnerabilities using psychological pressure, false promises, actions of perceived love, support, and intimidation to control and sexually exploit the child for their benefit. The issue of child sex trafficking is complex. Understanding the various forms of child sex trafficking and indicators can create opportunities for prevention, identification, and response. Most importantly, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children embraces and encourages all efforts on this issue to be survivor informed, child centered, and trauma informed. Below are some examples of child sex trafficking. I'll make this bigger for y'all to be able to see. Pimp controlled trafficking. Child is trafficked by an unrelated individual, male or female, who often develops an intentional relationship with a child, which is later used as leverage in the exploitation. I know some friends that had a boyfriend and they were trafficked by a boyfriend and pimped out. They used the vulnerability of her getting away from her child abuse. He used that against her. So this is true. Gang control trafficking. Child is trafficked by a member of a gang or trafficked by the gang. Gangs leverage their organizational structure, violence, and local, national, and international networks to instill fear and loyalty in the child victim. Familial trafficking. Child is trafficked by a relative or a person who is perceived by the child to be a family member, such as individuals referred to as auntie or uncle, but are not directly related to the child. But I was directly related to the parents, my traffickers. Fire perpetrated trafficking. Child is being trafficked but does not have a trafficker. Instead, the buyer is directly exploiting the child's vulnerabilities by offering money, food, and or shelter in exchange for the sexual exploitation. Welcome everyone that's here. Child sex trafficking can have devastating immediate and long-term consequences, including health impacts, psychological and physical trauma, and even death. Prevention, education, and intervention are keys to keeping the children safer. After making a missing child report to law enforcement, we encourage law enforcement, parents, and legal guardians to report all missing children, especially children who have run away, to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children by calling 1-800-THE-LOST, 1-800-843-5678. Next, if you are concerned about potential child sex trafficking activity or see situations including the indicators listed below, please make a report to NCMEC Cyber Tip Line. Call 1-800-THE-LOST, which I have it scrolling at the bottom of the page. Hi there, Jackie. Good to see you, too. I'm doing pretty good. Thank you. How are you? Here are some of the risk factors here, all right? I think I need to bring that back down. Understanding adverse childhood experiences. That's what ACEs stands for when y'all see that abbreviation out there. As common risk factors help identify opportunities to proactively intervene in an effort to prevent child sex trafficking. We've organized these factors into 3 categories. The list below is not exhaustive, and many factors may be interconnected. So right here, we're going to start with the societal and environmental. The son of the child understanding adverse childhood experiences, societal and environmental, racism, bullying, lack of resources, involvement in child welfare or juvenile justice systems, gang activity, sexism, xenophobia. Here is family. Intergenerational sexual abuse, lack of acceptance of gender identity or sexual orientation, housing instability, homelessness, immigration status, adverse childhood experiences, domestic violence, household substance abuse, physical emotional neglect or abuse, sexual abuse, families with untreated mental health issues. Then there's individual, which is a history of trauma, lack of supported family or adult figures, low self-esteem, developmental or physical disability, substance misuse. That's where a lot of people turn to drugs, unfortunately. You're welcome, Jackie. Hope you're doing well, our bucket list, and everyone that's here. There's a survivor perspectives child sex trafficking. So I would need to mute my mic. Yes, this is a video.
I hope, no, I'm not going to say I want the change of people listening, people recognizing signs of what's going on. It does not always happen to girls. It does not always happen to women. Watch the signs, look for changes in the person, and move forward asking the question, what's going on? What can I do to help? And build a rapport so when a male comes to a parent or an adult, a teacher, that they're open-minded to listen to what's going on.
I literally almost did not graduate the 8th grade because I had all these absences that were unaccounted for.
I stopped going to the track team. I stopped going to kickball and stuff like that because at the end of practice, instead of me going home, I would have to go over to his house.
Looking back now, I know that I was really depressed and I was struggling in other ways. I was really angry. I was acting out.
Take the time out to listen and recognize if you see a change in somebody, push the envelope a little bit, find out what's going on with them and ask those specific questions. And, you know, nowadays in school, we have social workers, we have psychologists and things like that. Get other people involved because you never know what someone's going through.
Any child is vulnerable, right? Just by the nature of being a child or young teenager or older teenager, you're vulnerable. But any extra factors that you throw in is going to make you more vulnerable. It wasn't just him painting this glamorous life that I could be a part of if I ran away. It was also that things were happening at home and in my community that made me want to run away. It was those two things together, and I think it's kids who are experiencing those two things, something that they want to get away from and this other thing that they would like to gravitate towards.
I was a runner. I loved running away because I felt that if I stayed, those bad things would happen again. So I continued to run.
Oftentimes we're in situations that are not of choice or something that we want to be in. And so the lack of, there's no Amber Alert for foster children when they go missing. There's no posters, there's no flyers, there's no PSA about missing foster children. We go missing and nobody cares. We go missing and there's no alerts put out. And this is something that the exploiters really capitalize on. They know this. They know that for foster children, there's not going to be anybody looking for us. And when you're so unstable and you lack attachments, you really want as a young person to attach to someone and something, which makes you vulnerable to attach to people that are not so good.
I was just a naive kid. You didn't have to tell me much. You could just tell me I was beautiful and I would believe you at that moment in my life. And for me, it didn't feel that bad because I had already been sexually abused. I had already been touched against my will. I had already been raped. I had already went through a series of different experiences that took away any, I want to say, it took away all of my innocence.
I was a teenager. The only person that was close to me my entire life was murdered. I had been through a million, so many different placements, and I was lost. I was lost and I needed love.
I was really angry. I was acting out. I really needed some guidance, and I really needed someone to reach out to me and offer me some help. But I didn't know how to ask for that help. And I think that the people around me didn't know exactly how to offer that help. So in the end, it was someone who was looking to prey on a child or a teenager who reached out and offered help that looked tangible to me, that I responded to.
My hope is to live in a world where children are protected, no matter what their background is, that someone cares for them, even if you didn't give birth to them, even if it's a child walking down the street, you care about that child. If you see them in need, help them. That's my hope, to live in a world where we protect our children.
That really got me there, y'all. I'm sorry. That really got me there when she said foster kids are not looked for when they go missing. How does that make y'all feel? They do not put in a bulletin when they go missing foster care. I'm like, what? I hope that's changed today from when this person went through this. Their lives matter too, people. We need to save them and rescue them. They don't deserve what's going on with them. They don't deserve being put in the system in the first place either. I think I need to replay that because I just can't believe it. I think we really need to pay attention to what she said again. So let me mute my mic again. I'm going to replay that because, man, that really hit me hard. I'm replaying it.
Any child is vulnerable, right? Just by the nature of being a child or young teenager or older teenager, you're vulnerable. But any extra factors that you throw in is going to make you more vulnerable. It wasn't just him painting this glamorous life that I could be a part of if I ran away. It was also that things were happening at home and in my community that made me want to run away. It was those two things together, and I think it's kids who are experiencing those two things, something that they want to get away from and this other thing that they would like to gravitate towards.
I was a runner. I loved running away because I felt that if I stayed, those bad things would happen again. So I continued to run.
Oftentimes we're in situations that are not of choice or something that we want to be in. And so the lack of, there's no Amber Alert for foster children when they go missing. There's no posters, there's no flyers, there's no PSA about missing foster children. We go missing and nobody cares. We go missing and there's no alerts put out. And this is something that the exploiters really capitalize on. They know this. They know that for foster children, there's not going to be anybody looking for us. And when you're so unstable and you lack attachments, you really want as a young person to attach to someone and something, which makes you vulnerable to attach to people that are not so good.
I was just a naive kid. You didn't have to tell me much. You could just tell me I was beautiful and I would believe you at that moment in my life. And for me, it didn't feel that bad because I had already been sexually abused. I had already been touched against my will. I had already been raped. I had already went through a series of different experiences that took away any, I want to say, it took away all of my innocence.
I was a teenager. The only person that was close to me my entire life was murdered. I had been through a million, so many different placements, and I was lost. I was lost, and I needed love.
So I was really angry. I was acting out. I really needed some guidance, and I really needed someone to reach out to me and offer me some help. But I didn't know how to ask for that help. And I think that the people around me didn't know exactly how to offer that help. So in the end, it was someone who was looking to prey on a child or a teenager who reached out and offered help that looked tangible to me, that I responded to.
My hope is to live in a world where children are protected, no matter what their background is, that someone cares for them, even if you didn't give birth to them, even if it's a child walking down the street, you care about that child. If you see them in need, help them. That's my hope, to live in a world where we protect our children.
Hey, little wing, much love to you too. Go like this and go bring it back up there. Oh yeah, there's so many it's missing. Oh, it's astounding. Some of my friends at Facebook are in some missing kids group or missing people group, and some of the people are saying, "Don't be putting these new missing kids posters up because there's becoming so many that the group's becoming overwhelming." Lots of love there, Little Wing. Thanks for coming in too. It's by the numbers. In 2023, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received more than 18,400 reports of possible child sex trafficking. In 2023, NCMEC received more than 400 reports of missing children who had run away, with co-occurring endangerments involving likely exploitation through child sex trafficking and gangs. 1 in 6 of the more than 28,800 cases of children reported missing to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in 2023 were likely victims of child sex trafficking. 1 in 6, everyone. Of the children reported missing to them in 2023 who had run from the care of child welfare, 19% were likely victims of child sex trafficking. And what's so sad about it, we hear so many stories where they're basically missing and out of the system itself, and they're getting blamed. They're saying that Child Protective Service is part of the problem, and I do believe it. I believe it exists worldwide, nationwide. There was something going on so bad in Athens, Alabama, with one of the guys that was over Child Protective Services there, and my neighbor here was friends with him, and he ended up committing suicide. It was overwhelming. Yes, so true. Then a lot of times it's a kid that's actually missing, and then the cops want to look at it as a runaway, and it might not have been a runaway, it might have been an abduction. So every second counts, and the cops dismiss it a lot of times because of their age. Oh, it's a runaway. How do we know it's a runaway? How do we know it's not an abduction? Providing a specialized response. NCMEC provides training, case management, clearinghouse resources, analytical support, family and peer support, and recovery services assistance on reports involving child sex trafficking, including there's a child sex trafficking analytical team. The child sex trafficking team resources are available to law enforcement only. For assistance, please reach out to 1-800 The Lost and ask to speak with a member of this team. You use cyber tip line reports related to child sex trafficking and makes them available to law enforcement for review and potential investigation. What's so bad about it, a lot of times I know cops have dismissed so many things and swept it under the rug. It's like they need to be trained into this. They need to have special team, special forces, all this to look into this and not keep sweeping it under the rug. Conducts link analysis to connect potential victims and or offenders in multiple states or locations. Provide specialized child sex trafficking analytical assistance to law enforcement to assist with the location and recovery of survivors. Leverages open source data and specialized child sex trafficking technology tools to develop information and leads. Analyzes phone numbers, names, email addresses, and or publicly accessible online presence of possible traffickers to support law enforcement with the location and recovery of missing children exploited through child sex trafficking. Offers law enforcement free, specialized operational support. So, these officers, they really need to get the proper training. The Child Sex Trafficking Recovery Planning and Services. I guess bigger for everybody. The Child Sex Trafficking Recovery Services team provides specialized technical assistance and resources to child welfare workers who are working with missing children who are also victims of child sex trafficking. The Recovery Services Team resource specialists provide knowledge and guidance on promising practices and trauma informed response by making connections to statewide and local specialized child sex trafficking resources. The RST resource specialists are prepared to assist in the development of intentional trauma informed and victim centered plans which have been proven to build rapport, increase opportunities for youth engagement, and reduce trauma responses. One thing that's been aggravating me in Tennessee, we have got all these laws where everyone's a mandated reporter of sex abuse. Everyone in Tennessee, regardless. If you know about it, you can get in trouble for not talking about it or telling about it. Yet there's people look at the Gracie and Grant Solomon. I keep bringing that into play because that needs to be acknowledged. Gracie come forward about it, but it got swept under the rug by Judge Deanna Johnson, Senator Jack Johnson, Father Aaron Solomon that worked at the news station in Nashville, Tennessee. He was even with an organization, I think it was called Child Help. I can't remember what the name exactly was. But all these people are siding with Aaron Solomon, covering up for him. But Governor Bill Lee sits on the same pew with him as Aaron Solomon. Senator Jack Johnson and Deanna Johnson, Judge Deanna Johnson, all go to that school. Look at the trouble in Franklin, Tennessee. There's another school, church school, thing where there's been kids that were raped and exploited, and Judge Deanna Johnson swept it under the rug. She just didn't let it go through. And same goes with Senator Jack Johnson. And what's so bad about it? I know Governor Bill Lee knows about it, but he's doing nothing, nothing at all. So that's why I would tell people do not vote for Governor Bill Lee because he's not adhering to the laws and making sure that these things are covered and that our children are protected. Family advocacy and support. NCMEC provides assistance and support to families impacted by child sex trafficking. Family advocacy specialists offer crisis intervention to families as well as local referrals to appropriate professionals for longer-term support. Families of exploited children often feel alone in their struggle and overwhelmed by the issues impacting their lives. NCMEC's Team Hope is a volunteer program that connects families to others who have experienced the crisis of a sexually exploited child. These trained volunteers offer peer support, coping skills, and compassion. Have you heard about the case, Little Wing? The Aaron Solomon, the Gracie Solomon, and Grant Solomon, where Grant ended up killed, murdered, and they want to put it up as accident, but everybody's been showing the proof that it's not an accident, but and it shows evidence that Aaron Solomon, the daddy, was the only one there when it happened. Yes, but we got to remember justice for Grant and freedom for Gracie. Prioritizing survivor leadership and voice. For nearly 15 years, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's work on the topic of child sex trafficking has been informed by those with lived experience. NCMEC's team of lived experience consultants intentionally represents a diverse group of professional, experiential, and cultural perspectives. Our inclusivity is our strength, and individual perspectives are valued over consensus. The insight provided has and will continue to refine, shape, and reform our current and future child sex trafficking efforts and programs. The knowledge survivors of child sex trafficking provide is immeasurable, and NCMEC is committed to having a team of compensated, lived experience consultants to inform existing and future programs. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's child sex trafficking work will continue to be informed by lived experience experts from idea to innovation to the launch. Training professionals on how to identify and respond to child sex trafficking. We, they provide free specialized child sex trafficking training on the identification and response to child sex trafficking that can be provided online or in person. To learn more about our training options or request specialized training, it says click here. I will drop the link into the chat box. Okay, so anybody can go in there and watch and get some training. Let me give y'all. Yeah, I covered the case as well. It's a bad case. Each of the specialized child sex trafficking trainings were developed in collaboration with compensated lived experienced consultants alongside child welfare and or law enforcement professionals to ensure the resources are informed by the populations they are designed to serve. You know what's so bad about it? When you report somebody that is a sex offender that threatened to do some things across the street, you report them a lot of times around me in Pulaski, Tennessee, I won't lie, that they come and actually tell me, well, you know the person's mental. Well, what gives him the right to threaten to rape me or rape this 18-month-old going, up the driveway to see their grandma? What gives him the right to threaten to knock us down and to kill us? What gave him the right just because he's mental? What gives him the right to do all these threats? What gives my neighbor the right to keep saying these sexual things to me and nothing being done? What gives him the right? Why do they get away with it when they're mental? I don't think that they're right in not protecting the average citizens when we get these threats. Introduction to Child Sex Trafficking. This training offers 3 modules and builds a comprehensive foundation on the issue of child sex trafficking for all audiences, including law enforcement, child welfare, as well as concerned citizens. Well, thank you, Little Wing. Yeah, that means justice for Grant. Yeah, let's give hearts for Grant and Gracie. Okay. Yes, sure. For Gracie too. That's right. And for the mom also, she's going through a lot of trouble trying to protect her daughter. She's been a wonderful mama. Training for child welfare professionals on sex trafficking. Child welfare professionals play an important role in the response to child sex trafficking and supporting at higher risk. From initially reporting youth in care missing to a deeper understanding of the connection to running behavior and child sex trafficking, NCMEC is here to help. If that's true about when somebody is in the welfare system and foster care system and they go missing and nothing's done, that they're not reported, it's almost like they didn't care. That's what that lady said. Nobody goes looking for them when they go missing. That's pretty pathetic. That's pretty pathetic, y'all. Child Welfare Intro to NCMEC. This training offers 3 micro modules specifically designed to assist child welfare professionals working with children missing from care who are exploited through child sex trafficking. Online self-paced courses, child sex trafficking legislation, what it means for you, reporting children missing from care, how NCMEC can support you, NCMEC resources for child welfare professionals, child sex trafficking, understanding running behavior, and trauma-informed youth engagement. It was approved for 1 CEU. This online learning plan was created for licensed social workers and other professionals supporting children in foster care. The information included, will increase knowledge and skills to improve successful engagement with youth who are likely victims of child sex trafficking or who have run away from foster care. The courses are Understanding Why Youth Run and How You Can Help, Child Sex Trafficking Building Blocks for Engagement and Healing. Then there's the Training for Law Enforcement. Please allow 24 hours after registering as law enforcement for course access. Y'all, we need to insist that our officers are trained. These courses are designed to provide law enforcement with advanced techniques and best practices when working with victims of child sex trafficking and investigating these complex cases. The online self-paced courses is rapport building and successful engagement with survivors for law enforcement, leveraging available resources for child sex trafficking cases, investigating child sex trafficking cases. There's a building awareness about the issue. Okay, so I had downloaded these right quick and we'll go over them right quick. So here is the overview. What is child sex trafficking? It's a form of child abuse that occurs when a child under 18, I need to move this over so I can get to my, okay, is advertised, solicited, or exploited through a commercial sex act. A commercial sex act is the exchange of anything of value, such as money, drugs, or a place to stay for sexual activity. Traffickers can be anyone who profits from the selling of a child for sex to a buyer, including family members, foster parents, gangs, and perceived trusted adults or romantic partners. In some cases, there is no identified trafficker, and it is a person buying sex from the child who is exploiting the child's vulnerabilities. For instance, if a child runs away, a buyer may exploit the child's need for food and shelter by offering to provide that in exchange for sex. Not every report NCMEC receives involves a missing child. Some reports include children being exploited while still living at home and going to school, sometimes by their own family, as was the case with me, but it never got reported. Other children who are particularly vulnerable to trafficking include homeless youth who have been kicked out due to lack of acceptance of their sexual orientation or gender identity. In many situations, due to the trauma and manipulation from the trafficker, survivors will feel as if they are responsible for their own victimization. Kids are so easy to be manipulated. It is so easy to blame ourselves in those situations. In some cases, even defending their abuser, it's important to remember to meet survivors where they are at and understanding their victimization while also ensuring their rights and access to services as a victim of a crime are honored. What are we seeing? In 2023, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received more than 18,400 reports of child sex trafficking from all 50 states. Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, which included every type of community, cities, small towns, and tribal lands. In 2023, of the 28,800 children reported missing to NCMBC, 1 in 6 were likely sex trafficking victims. 19% of the children who left from the care of social services and were reported missing to NCMBC in 2023 were likely victims of child sex trafficking. And how do you know that the foster parent didn't hand them off? How do we know that somebody didn't hand them off, that was in their jurisdiction, their care? How do we know that? In 2023, NCMBC received over 400 reports of missing children who had run away with co-occurring endangerments involving likely exploitation through child sex trafficking and gangs. What we are doing about it. NCMBC provides training, case management, clearinghouse resources, specialized analysis, and recovery services on cases involving child sex trafficking included. The NCMEC's child sex trafficking team leverages open source data and specialized child sex trafficking technology tools to develop information and leads on all missing child cases and cyber tip line reports related to child sex trafficking. Case managers assist on cases of missing children involved in or at risk of sex trafficking. Child Sex Trafficking Recovery Services team offers technical assistance and support to child welfare workers and other multidisciplinary team members and developing informed victim assistance plans for survivors of child sex trafficking. Family advocacy and Team Hope provide resource planning, and support for families who are experiencing the trauma of their child being trafficked. Here's what to look for. Child sex trafficking victims often are unable to self-identify as victims or disclose their abuse because of fear, shame, or loyalty to their abusers. It is not a child's responsibility to ask for help. Well, I know I couldn't have told, even if I did remember and I spoke out, because I blocked it all out. I blacked a lot of it. That was a mind's protecting. It is up to the professionals and trusted adults in these children's lives to recognize the signs associated with child sex trafficking so they can intervene and help them get the support they deserve. These red flags or indicators should not be considered a checklist or an assessment tool. Rather, if observed, they may be an opportunity to ask more questions, make a report to NCMEC's cyber tip line, or connect the child to resources for prevention or intervention. Here's the physical indicators over here. Signs of sexual or physical abuse, symptoms of neglect such as malnourishment, unaddressed or chronic medical dental issues or STIs, close association with an overly controlling adult, recovered at hotels, street tracks, truck stops, or strip clubs, or other locations where trafficking or commercial sex is known to occur. Has secret cell phones or apps provided multiple cell phone numbers, in possession of material goods inconsistent to the child's access to money or socio-economic status, in possession of bulk sexual paraphernalia such as bulk condoms or lubricant, living out of suitcases at motels or in a car or other evidence of housing insecurity, unexplained access to large amounts of cash, prepaid credit cards or hotel keys, tattoos or branding such as those indicating money, matching those of other known trafficking victims, or that the child is reluctant to explain. References traveling to other cities or states while missing, or lack of knowledge of their current whereabouts. Drug dependency, frequent abuse of party drugs such as GHB, Ropanol, ketamine, and DMA, ecstasy, methamphetamine. And here's some behavioral indicators. Chronically runs away from home, especially 3+ missing incidents. Unexplained absences from school. Constantly sleeping during class. Stops engaging in activities they previously enjoyed, such as athletics or clubs. Abruptly disconnects from family and friends. Significant changes in behavior, including their online activity. Avoids answering questions or let others speak for them. Appears frightened, annoyed, resistant, or belligerent to authority figures. Reluctant to disclose true identity or personal information, and who and or has a secret online profile. References online escort ads or dating website apps. Uses language or emojis often associated with prostitution such as trick, the life, the game. What to do? Report suspected child sex trafficking or make a tip at 1-800 The Lost or cybertipline.org. Learn more. We went over that part a few minutes ago. So now we'll go over the second one. Understanding sex trafficking. Sex trafficking is a form of human trafficking for the purpose of sexual exploitation. Federal definition of sex trafficking in 2000 The passage of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, the TVPA, made human trafficking a federal crime and defined sex trafficking as the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for the purposes of a commercial sex act in which the commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, or coercion, or in which a person induced is under 18. Realities of sex trafficking. Survivors of sex trafficking include all races, all genders, all socioeconomic backgrounds, and all nationalities. Sex trafficking is an underreported crime for many reasons. Victims may fear for their safety and well-being, or they have concerns about the criminal justice system, the legal system, and other social services. Traffickers may threaten their victims or falsely tell them they will be deported or arrested if they talk with law enforcement. Sex trafficking identifiers. Sex trafficking occurs when an action, means, and a purpose are all present except in cases involving minors when the means do not need to be established. An action may be thought of as a what, the means as how, and a purpose as why. The action means purpose model is an effective tool to use to identify survivors of sex trafficking. And this talks about who they are right here. The Human Trafficking Capacity Building Center is a coaching and development hub assisting organizations and tribes with building the capacity to aid victims of all forms of human trafficking, navigating the broad range of resources available to support their missions, and strengthening human trafficking service networks. So we go back to the action. What? Recruiting. Proactively targeting an individual's vulnerabilities and or grooming or befriending a child with the intention to abuse. Using. Supplying alcohol and or drugs to garner an intimate relationship or support an existing habit. Trying to get that to click on there, so yeah. Thank you for being you're quite welcome, little wing. Harboring, isolation, confinement, and or monitoring of another person's movement. Transporting, the unwanted movement and or arranging of travel of another person. Providing, the giving of a victim as a commodity to another person. Obtaining, forcibly taking something from someone else, exchanging something for the ability to control another person. Soliciting, offering something in value in exchange for sex, such as housing, food, clothing, travel, etc. Means is a how, to do by force, fraud, or coercion. The force is physical assault, sexual assault, isolation, and or confinement of another person. The fraud is false employment offers, sham marriages, lying about work situation, withholding wages, and or taking legal documentation such as passports or your driver's license. Coercion, threats of violence, threats of arrest, deportation, debt bondage, and or withholding legal documentation. Purpose, here's a why. Commercial Sex Act. Any sex act on account of anything of value given to or received by any person. And like it was done to me, so guess what? My parents were the ones that got the money, and I don't want any of the money, okay? I did not want any of the money. I didn't want any of that done to me either. To learn more about the signs of sex trafficking, access the Understanding Human Trafficking online training course available from the Office for Victims of Crime. Contact the center at contact at ovc-int.org. hgcbc.org or 1-844-682-0411. So the next one we go over. Okay, who are the victims? CST victims could be anyone, your child, a neighbor, or other family member. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has received reports of child sex trafficking from every U.S. state, and victims have included boys, girls, and transgender youth. U.S. citizens and children who have come to the U.S. from other countries, children from urban communities, suburbs, small towns, and tribal lands. While any child can be targeted, research has revealed that youth who lack strong support networks, have historical trauma, are experiencing homelessness, are being bullied, are marginalized by society, are at a higher risk. Who are the perpetrators? Traffickers can be anyone who profits from the selling of a child from sexual abuse, including friends, gangs, family members, foster parents, perceived trusted adults, or romantic partners. In some cases, there is no identified trafficker. It is a buyer who is directly exploiting the children to child's vulnerabilities. For instance, if a child runs away, the buyer may exploit the child's need for food and shelter by offering to provide that in exchange for sex. Keeping your child safer. Here are some tips right here, all right? Number one, talk to your child. Open communication is key. It's never too early to start talking to your child and answering their questions in an age appropriate way. In addition to focusing on CST, important related issues may include sexual health, healthy relationships, consent, and boundaries. Address the myths and misconceptions that glamorize commercial sex industry. Movies, TV shows, and music are all teachable moments, with opportunities to talk about these issues and learn about your child's thoughts and feelings. So while you're watching TV, you see a movie, you see a lady in a bathing suit or something, and then you see how these guys react. It's a good way to talk to your children. Build resiliency. Social media and gaming platforms are increasingly becoming the tool traffickers and other predators use to target, groom, and recruit victims. At some point, your child will likely be confronted with inappropriate messages or could hear or see things online that they know are wrong. Help teens know how to handle these types of situations by making sure they are comfortable telling you about it and know how to make a report to NCMEC's cyber tip line. NCMEC has many available resources available at ncmec.org NetSmarts to help your family practice internet safety. As I went over some of that the other day and showed y'all the links, here's the red flags, everyone. CST victims may not see themselves as victims or disclose their abuse because of fear, shame, or loyalty to their abuser. It's not a child's responsibility to ask for help. Familiarizing ourselves with signs of child sex trafficking can help us intervene if a child in our life is being trafficked and get them the support they deserve. A full list of red flags is available on the National Center for Missing and Exploited website. They chronically run away from home, unexplained absences from school, has secret cell phones or apps providing multiple cell phone numbers, possession of material goods inconsistent with a child's access to money, unexplained access to large amounts of cash, prepaid credit cards, or hotel keys, close association with an overly controlling adult, significant changes in behavior, including their online activity, abruptly disconnects from family or friends, stops engaging in activities they previously enjoyed, references online escort ads, or uses language often associated with prostitution such as trick, the life, the game. If you are worried that a child in your home, in your life, has become a victim of child sex trafficking, please remember you are an important source of support. How you respond matters. Here is what you do, and there's what you don't do. You need to be patient. You need to listen. You need to reassure the child or the victim. Don't assume, don't blame, don't interrogate. I would also encourage y'all not to put words into your child's mind. These kids need to be able to differentiate, to heal, not to try to put the blame where it don't need to go. That confuses a child. The child is confused enough going through what they're going through. If something doesn't seem right, ask questions. If you believe your child is a victim of child sex trafficking, NCMEC provides support for victims and their families. To learn more about these services, email family support at ncmec.org for help or call 1-800-843-5678. NCMEC can help connect you to peer support and therapists who are trained to look for troubling behaviors and help families figure out how to focus, communicate, and heal. Then there's NCMEC's resource, Reconnecting with Your Child, Building Relationships After Suspected Exploitation, is available at the ncmec.org. And read this little. When children run away frequently or for long periods of time, they are more at risk. So it's important to gather support and resources for your family. If your child runs away, immediately report it. But as we say, we say a child run away, police a lot of times won't do it. Oh, they're a runaway. So we went over what sex trafficking is. But let's go on with the child sex trafficking and children in care. Child welfare professionals play a critical role in preventing, intervening in, and providing a comprehensive service response to victims of child sex trafficking. Data and lived experience of survivors have revealed children in the care of social services are disproportionately vulnerable to sex trafficking. Perpetrators commonly target and recruit youth who have already experienced a disrupted home life and childhood sexual abuse. If a child runs away from care, it is important that the professionals who interact with the child express relief when the child is found and concern for the child's well-being while they're missing. Asking non-judgmental questions about how the child took care of themselves while they were missing, and noting any red flags or changes in behavior can help reveal potential victimization. Familial trafficking. When investigating child abuse and maltreatment, it is important for child welfare professionals to be aware children may be trafficked by a family member or multiple members of their household. NCMEC has limited information regarding statistics or prevalence of familial trafficking because these children are less likely to be reported missing. In many of these cases, the typical red flags associated with child sex trafficking may not apply, since the child and family may attempt to maintain an outward appearance of normalcy. If the child does seek help and they are not believed, the trafficker will know that their safety may be at risk. Exactly. For these reasons, some familiar trafficking survivors express serious concerns about who will take care of them and whether anyone will believe them if they do tell. The cops told me I better not never tell again or they'll do something to me. Federal laws have been enacted in response to the increased awareness of and attention to the prevalence of sex trafficking victimization among system-involved youth. Under the Justice for Victims of Trafficking Act, the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act, CAPTA, definition of an abused and neglected child was amended to include sex trafficking victims, irrespective of the relationship of the abuser to the child. Further, to be eligible for CAPTA funding, states must ensure that child welfare professionals are trained to identify, access, and provide comprehensive services to child sex trafficking victims. The Preventing Sex Trafficking and Strengthening Families Act includes a requirement that all states implement policies and procedures to identify, document, and determine appropriate services for victims of trafficking. It also requires that state social service agencies report any children who go missing from their care to both law enforcement and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children or risk losing their state's eligibility for federal funding under Title 4-E of the Social Security Administration Act. It provides specialist support and guidance on reporting children missing from care to NCMEC. Here's the indicators. Child sex trafficking victims often do not self-identify as victims and frequently do not disclose their abuse because of fear, shame, or loyalty to their abusers. As a result, it is likely that many child welfare agencies are already serving child sex trafficking victims who have not yet been identified as such. It is important to remember that it is not the responsibility of a child to recognize that he or she is being victimized and ask for help. It is up to the professionals and trusted adults in these children's lives to better recognize the signs associated with child sex trafficking so that they can intervene and help them get the support they deserve. That's true. That's true. And so many times I blame the child, said, but they didn't tell, why didn't they, da 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 da. There's a lot of reasons why a child don't tell. Here's some risk factors. They chronically run away from home for placement, especially 3+ missing incidents, unexplained access to large amounts of cash, prepaid cards, or hotel keys, tattoos or branding related to money, matching those of other known trafficking victims, or the child is unwilling to explain, significant changes in behavior, including their online activity, close association with overly controlling adults, in possession of material goods inconsistent to the child's access to money or socioeconomic status. References traveling to other cities or states while missing or lacking knowledge or the current whereabouts. References online escort ads, dating websites, ads, and apps. Uses language or emojis often associated with prostitution, such as the trick, the life, the game. They are recovered at a hotel, street track, truck stop, strip club, or other location known for commercial sex. Children missing from care, that's the same number. 24 hotline, 1-800 the lost. Their assistance for child welfare professionals, which we went over that on the other as well. It's 1 in 6 of the more than 28,800 missing children reported to NCMEC in 2023 were likely victims of CST. Oh, I got another one here. Here's an analysis. I don't know how many pages this is. This is just one page. Well, it's several pages together here. All right. There are many unknowns in child sex trafficking, notably the exact number of child victims who exist in the United States. Male victims of child sex trafficking have been and remain a bigger unknown. There is a commonly perpetuated belief that victims of child sex trafficking are almost exclusively female. Though males may comprise a smaller portion of victims, their numbers are significant, and they frequently face other endangerments. An even smaller proportion of child sex trafficking victims include transgender females or individuals who identify as female but were assigned male at birth. This analysis describes a subset of male victims of child sex trafficking by analysis males who were reported missing to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and were at high risk of being victims or were known to be victims at the time they were missing. Furthermore, only males who were reported missing to NCMEC between 2013 and 2017 were included in this analysis. Incidences involving males made up 5% of all possible CST missing incidents reported to them during the time frame. However, external research has increasingly found that there are more male victims than previously assumed. In some cases, studies have mentioned that the number of males and females are very similar. In 2016 Department of Health and Human Services study, 34.4% of surveyed males between the ages of 14 and 21 experiencing homelessness reported exchanging sex for something of value, including a place to stay, money, food, protection, and drugs. This analysis examines 565 missing incidents involving males who were recovered endangered runaways and were likely victims of child sex trafficking. Males who did not display indicators of likely sex trafficking victimization were included in portions of this report as a point of reference. As this report only contains information about the child's missing incidents known and reported to NCMEC, there are many aspects of the child's victimization not described. For example, it is largely unknown how the missing males in this sample of CST victims were recruited, or even if they had an identified trafficker. Regardless of whether a trafficker is identified, any child under 18 who is involved in commercial sex where sex is traded for money, food, shelter, drugs, or anything of value is a child sex trafficking victim. The demographic here is half of all likely male victims were white. Black males comprise almost a quarter of all the victims, and biracial males made up 14%, while white males made up the plurality of all non-trafficking males, 39%. Black non-trafficking males followed close behind at 31%, and Hispanic non-trafficking males at 19%. All CST males were reported to NCMEC as endangered runaways, with their ages at the time of the missing incidents between 11 and 17, and a plurality being 17 years old. These victims had an average age of 15. White males tended to be older with higher proportions consisting of 17-year-olds. Black males were also older as the majority were 16 or 17 years old. Biracial males were slightly younger with the highest proportion being 15 years old. In comparison, the plurality of non-trafficking males were 16 and 17 years old, or the same average age of 15. There was less variation for non-trafficking males when looking at age and race. Non-trafficking males were often 16 and 17 years old regardless of race. Missing incidents, the majority, 86% of male victims, were in the care of social services when they ran away, and 76% went missing from home. Fewer non-trafficking males were in social services custody when they went missing, but like CSC males, most went missing from home, 75%. Of note, the Preventing Sex Trafficking and Strengthening Families Act requires states to report each missing or abducted foster child to law enforcement and to NCMEC, which could account for these relatively high percentages of reported missing foster children. An additional small percentage of CST males went missing from school. Just over half of male victims were recovered at a place of residence, and 18% were recovered while on the street. Similarly, 48% of non-trafficking males were recovered in a place of residence, and 23% were recovered while on the street. Male victims came home on their own more often than recovery through a police investigation. Most male victims were recovered in the same state from where they went missing, though only 60% were recovered in the same city from where they went missing. Non-trafficking males did not differ on where they were recovered. About half of all males were recovered within 7 days. The longest time between missing and recovery date was almost 2 years. The average number of days missing was 37. These figures are nearly identical among non-trafficking males, though the average was slightly longer, 41 days, and the longest time missing for non-trafficking male was 43 years. Out of the 565 incidents of missing male victims, 37% included males who had run away on or at least 2 occasions between 2013 and 2017. By comparison, 25% of non-trafficking males had run away at least twice. One victim male had gone missing 29 times in a studied time frame. On each occasion, the child had run away from foster care. Yep. Children who go missing are inherently more at risk for dangers because they are not under appropriate adult supervision. Missing male victims are already in unsafe situations. However, additional endangerments that are not directly related to child sex trafficking can occur simultaneously. The reported endangerments include the child carrying a weapon, using drugs and or alcohol, being enticed online, being involved in a gang, having a mental health diagnosis, running away before, having self-harm tendencies, having other special needs, and having suicidal tendencies. Almost all incidents involving males had at least one of the additional endangerments listed. This compares to 87% more among non-trafficking males. The average number of reported endangerments for all incidents involved CST males was 3, while 2 was the average number of reported endangerments for non-trafficking males. A CST victim with a previous reported missing incident was the most common endangerment listed, and 85% of all missing incidents included at least one of the other endangerments. The second most commonly reported endangerment was a child using drugs and or alcohol. Excluding those two most common categories of endangerment, 67% of victims had at least one or the other endangerment mentioned above. More than half of all male victims reportedly had a mental health diagnosis. Non-trafficking males have less of each type of endangerment listed, with the exception of reported gang membership. 14% of male victims had reported gang membership compared to 15% of non-trafficking males. 21% of all missing incidents involved male victims, including transgendered females. Victims of CST who identified as female but were assigned male at birth. It's unknown how many total transgender female victims exist in the United States, as there is no consensus among studies and service providers. Among transgender females reported NCMEC, black children were the most prevalent at 58%, with white children falling at 17%, and both biracial and Hispanic children at 11%, respectively. This is unique in the data set, as higher proportions of the victim children were white. comparable to the overall data, biracial transgender females tended to be younger than the racial groups at 15, while black children were more than 16 years old, and the last three groups, American Indian, Hispanic, and white, more often 17 years old. Almost all transgender female victims were missing from care and tended to return home on their own. This compares to 42% of cisgender male as victims coming home on their own. 95% of transgender females were recovered in the same state from which they went missing, while 90% of cisgendered males were recovered in the same state. The difference between both groups being recovered in the same city was slightly larger. A higher proportion of transgender females were recovered in the same city, whereas 58% of cisgender males were recovered in the same city. I want to go and note about it does not matter whether anybody's sexual orientation or whatever, a missing child is a missing child. When a child is reported missing, any known information that can aid in recovering the child becomes part of the child's case. However, the reported person may not know the exact details that led to the child going missing or what happened to the child while he was missing. In addition, when the child is recovered, he may not disclose any victimization or provide exhaustive information. As a result, there are often many details of the children's likely victimization that remain unknown, and there may be many missing children reported that were actually victims, but whose victimization was never identified. Out of 565 missing incidences of male victims, only one incident included information about how the child was recruited. Only one about how the child was recruited. Wow. In that case, the child was recruited in person by the family's pastor, who became the child's trafficker. See what you said it now. I thought it would be too. But what we went over the other day under the sextortion, well, that has grown exponentially. You go and watch that one. It's scary how much those numbers, how these predators are getting our children to present themselves as be a younger age that was cute, friends of other friends, and getting our children to expose themselves and then threatening saying they want money or they want sex or something like that. They feel like they got to give it because then they're used and everything. They're exploited. Similarly, there were a small number of reports which included information about whether the child had a trafficker. Only five males who were involved in 10 missing incidents were reported as having a trafficker. Four of those incidents included males who were arrested with their trafficker. In 16 cases involving 14 males, the child specifically indicated that he did not have a trafficker. Two males in five incidents were being trafficked by a member of the child's family. 22 missing incidents included males who were in an advertisement posted online soliciting buyers for sexual acts. Some male victims were in advertisements posted on multiple websites daily, such as social media, dating, and escort websites. 14 of the 22 missing incidences included a transgender female. It was reported that in 10% of all incidences, the male was trading sex for things of value other than money, such as drugs, shelter, electronics, etc. In 15% of the cases, the child's caregiver reported the child gaining new possessions without explanation or from an unknown source. When it was known, money, 29%, was the most common item, followed by clothing and accessory type items and cell phones. See the top one right there is money, 29%, clothing, shoes, jewelry, accessories, cell phones, other items, unknown items, drugs, makeup, nails, hair, other electronics, credit cards. Children may have experiences in their past that increase their vulnerability to being targeted and victimized through sex trafficking. 7% of all males were known to have been victims during a past run. Of all transgender females, 24% were known to have been a previous victim. In some cases, it is not known if a child has been a victim. However, the child's behavior or characteristics were similar to those of known victims. Half of all males had indicators they have been victims in a past missing incident, while a slightly higher proportion of transgender females had such indicators in a past run. 12% of cisgender male victims had a history of sexual abuse compared to 8% of transgender females victims who had a history of sexual abuse. The majority of all male victims did not have a history of being thrown out or have been homeless. Only 1% had such a history that was reported to NCMEC. There's a conclusion. An analysis of the victimization of males in child sex trafficking is challenged by a number of factors, but also yields several interesting data points. We may not know the exact number of male victims of child sex trafficking, but it does clearly seem to be underreported. There are many possible reasons for the underrepresentation of males in the child sex trafficking data. For one, it's important to note that while some victims are reported missing, there may be many more victims who are never reported missing, such as youth who have been kicked out of their home or are homeless. Furthermore, a child does not need to be missing to be victimized through child trafficking. Child sex trafficking can happen at home, school, or other environments that are a part of a child's daily life without ever triggering a missing child report. It is possible that many underage male victims may belong to this category. Additionally, there are more unknowns in this dataset arising from the nature of second-hand accounts. For example, it is unknown whether males are truly less likely to have a trafficker if children are protecting the trafficker as a result of trauma bonds, or the trafficker-victim dynamic in general is different with males and females. One particularly interesting point arising from this analysis is a higher than expected prevalence of transgender females, which could result from several possible explanations. There may be a relationship between the stress on children and their relationships with supportive adults in such situations that drives this, and it's also conceivable that the number of transgender victims is higher, since many transgender children face stigma regarding their gender identification alone. Adding another layer of sexual victimization, most often by adult male perpetrators, increases the likelihood of these victims not reporting their abuse. The number of transgender children may also be higher due to their gender identity itself not being reported. Child sex trafficking is a difficult subject to analyze empirically. Data is lacking and is subject to many inconsistencies, but it is clear that crime happens to both male and females. It is our hope that exploring unique characteristics of male victims might help reduce the overall level of victimization. There's one more to go over. This is missing children, state care, and child sex trafficking. That's where it goes on down. And we went over um, a lot of this already, how they go and they should be given. And I want to get to this other important thing that I want to show y'all. But I did go basically over that a second ago. Okay, so you go right here to go to free training, okay? You click on the link. Yeah, it is way underreported. You're right there. You're right. See, right here is the categories. Here are the different courses. It says serving victims, survivors, and families, empowering individuals. So here's where you can agree. Click on and so when I clicked on it, see what it says, enroll. So this module is an introduction to the victim and family support. I'm going to see what it would say if I click on that, okay? I guess I would need to sign in up here or register. Other courses that may also interest you, community-based, multidisciplinary. There's all these different ones right here. So y'all can go here and take the courses, and that will help. And then it may help you get certified and help people to understand even more. I really believe that enticement is big time. That with this NC Connect thing. Let me go back to something for a second. Go up, top of the page. Let me share the page again. I want to show you right here. No, not that. Present. Welcome back. Gonna go entire screen again. Allow. I want to show people what's available here. When you go to this NCMEC, you go to missionkids.org / and here's the issues. So they also deal with autism and wandering, end-to-end encryption, help IDB, long-term missing, online enticement, endangered runaways, child sexual abuse material, child sex trafficking, family abduction, infant abductions, missing from care, other types of missing, sextortion, non-family abduction, and attempts. We'll go over here to online enticements. Here's where the online enticement involves an individual communicating with someone believed to be a child via the internet with the intent to commit a sexual offense or abduction. This is a broad category of online exploitation includes sextortion, in which a child is being groomed to take sexually explicit images and or ultimately meet face to face with someone for sexual purposes or to engage in a sexual conversation online or in some instances to sell, trade the child's sexual images. This type of victimization takes place across every platform, social media, messaging apps, gaming platforms. Here's some red flags here. The most common tactics used to entice children include engaging in sexual conversation, role-playing as a grooming method rather than a goal, asking the child for sexually explicit images of themselves or mutually shared images, developing a rapport through compliments, discussing shared interests, or liking their online post, also known as grooming, sending or offering sexually explicit images of themselves, pretending to be younger, and offering an incentive such as gift card, alcohol, drugs, lodging, transportation, or food. I'm glad you're back, Bucket List. Yes, gaming platforms. It's pretty scary because a lot of our kids have Xboxes and they have PlayStations and computers where they do their gaming too. Certain online behaviors increase the risk for online enticement and becoming a victim of sextortion. These behaviors include lying about being older in order to access certain platforms which would allow communication with older individuals, initiating online communication and/or offering in exchange with offenders, such as requesting financial compensation, alcohol, drugs, gifts, etc., for sexually explicit content of oneself, sending explicit photos or videos known as sext oneself to another user. See how much it's grown. See, look how much it had grown from 2019 to 2020. Look at that right there. Oh yeah, there's been a lot of them. Especially you use that online gaming. If you go on there and don't use the online or your code to communicate, be different. But look at these numbers right here, y'all. The online enticement report. See here? See how much it's grown there, little wing? See, you're right there. See? That's why I came over here to show you. And it has to do with sextortion as well as when I brought it the other day. That's when they lure kids into doing the child trafficking in another way for benefit of money or cards or games or anything. See, there's 2019 report. See, and look at 2020. See how much it grown just in that little while. I hate to see how big it's grown from in 2020 to, I mean, from then to now, you know? There's it go. Bad during that time. Made it worse and the stimulus checks didn't help. Get that right. That made it worse too. Sure did. In a NCMEC analysis of online enticement reports, 98% of reported offenders were seemingly unknown to the child offline. In the same NCMEC analysis of online enticement reports, 78% of reported victims were female. So, you know, a lot of these go unreported. So the numbers are even greater. Okay, and then 13% were male, and 9% of reports gender could not be determined. There's the NCME, they created a place to report it, that cyber tip line that we have at the bottom. And they also have the Child Victim Identification Program, which began in 2002 after NCMEC analysts repeatedly saw images of the same child victims in their reviews and began tracking which victims had been previously identified by law enforcement. So far, more than 19,100 have been identified. Today, CBIP operates with a dual mission to help provide information concerning previously identified child victims and help locate unidentified child victims featured in sexually abusive images so that they may be identified and rescued. Additionally, the Child Victim Identification Program provides training and educational assistance to law enforcement and attorneys on how child victims of sexual exploitation can be identified. Preventing abuse through education. As I said before, they have got this NetSmart. I'm going to go there and click on that to show y'all again. We played this video on NetSmart the other day. They have a thing where you could contact them, where they can remove your nudes from the internet, which is a good thing to have. Well, online, when you're doing a gaming and stuff like that, all the people said that they didn't know. They didn't know the perpetrators offline. The majority of them didn't. And of course, here is free resources where you can download presentations, tip sheets, lesson plans, and other safety resources. Then they have a peer education and mentoring kit, ideal for upper elementary and middle school students. Middle and high school videos on sextortion. That's smartkids.org. And there's video comprehension questions, which we did those questions when we watched some of the videos the other day. Talk about sexting, get your photo fake discussion guide. Hope store look great, support, donate, NetSmart. That's what so we over here in that clip right here, the free resources. It's for parents, educators, and communities. Here's the NetSmart Online Safety for middle schools, Advanced Online Safety for high school, and Internet Safety Guardians Community. And that's where I had downloaded the other day. Well, I thought I did. But anyways, you can download the Internet Safety for parents, guardians, and communities when you go right here. Which I think each parent should do that. Yes, it is. It's very important to talk about. So I would recommend everybody go to that website, themissingkids.org, and look at all their different information that they have. They got a lot of world of knowledge. It's just not about missing kids. I want to thank y'all for coming, and hope to see y'all around soon, and I hope y'all have a blessed week. God bless y'all. Thank you so much for coming. Remember to be vigilant towards these to protect our kids and protect others. Bye-bye. Thanks for coming.